Yeah, I came in '73. It was quite a transition. I came from Dallas, a small town in central Texas, to pursue the bright lights of Blacksburg. My good friend said to me, and fellow researcher at SMU, I hope it is as cloudy there as it was when I interviewed. It snowed. But it was an exciting time. Think of 1973, the earliest department, Stanford, Purdue, been in existence for 10 years. They all started with PhDs, graduate programs that got the emphasis. Virginia Tech started with an undergraduate program. But that had its advantages as well as its weaknesses, or maybe challenges. We were doing mainframe computing. Oh, what a joy. We had RJE stations. And we had IBM 370s, very impressive hardware. Now, computing hardware, though, was dependent upon IBM software. And as one of our reviewers said in 1975, we like IBM hardware. We don't care much for IBM software, and we think it's a problem for your academic department. So that was not the beginning, but probably one of the major issues that continued between a computer system that serves both administrative users and academic users. And I can remember sitting at a computer policy committee meeting in about 1976 when the computing system had been down for about 3 days and we couldn't get any turnaround, and being told by the vice president in charge, well, you couldn't get back on for the first 12 hours because we were printing the checks. You wouldn't want us to interrupt that, would you? And I said to him, what do you think would be the response from the president of General Motors that said we couldn't run our assembly lines, our product, because we were printing the checks? I said, I think I know what would be the next question. Just how soon would your resignation be over the desk? But it was challenging, and it was enjoyable. We began to try to overcome some of the difficulties that Ann has mentioned in terms of space. We did some modifications to what we had in McBride Hall, and we began to hire faculty. Jan Lee was the first. Jan and I had worked together about 3 years prior on a ACM Standards Committee effort, and I am, along with many others, recognized his very strong abilities in getting people of diverse views to work together and in translating computing concepts into understandable teaching material. He's the only guy I know who's ever written a book in numerical analysis and a book in compilers. So, along with me, please recognize Jan Lee. Jan was followed by a number of people who really formed the base of the department, contributed far more to what it has become than I ever did. People like Roger Garrett, came from Massachusetts, Rex Hartson, who finished his PhD at Ohio State, and Lane Watson joined us from Michigan State. Let's see, who else am I missing? Well, O'Donnell came as a visiting professor in 1977. I was saving that for one of the fortuitous moves that we made. I can't claim a lot of credit for it. I don't know why he decided this would be a good place, but he did. We are indeed headed to him doing so. You talk about departments and computer science department's history. You can talk about programs. We started with a BS. In '73, when I came here, the MS had been in existence for 1 year. My first assignment was to write a proposal for a PhD program. Really quite challenging when you consider that we also had in this proposal to justify why there should be more than one PhD granting department in the state of Virginia. And of course, we know where that one was. Okay? So what was the gimmick? I shouldn't use that term. What was our justification? We were to be a graduate program in computer science and applications. And you know, that also had opportunities as well as challenges. For one thing, we were probably one of the departments in the country by the middle 80s who still retained more of teaching of computer applications as well as the science within that department, because it made it harder for other colleges to start up their own programs in information systems, etc. Now, of course, as we rapidly learned going into the 80s, but thank God I was out of the job. And that could be a curse as well as a blessing when you were overwhelmed by students. So, the applications had actually been introduced by the undergraduate program that some of you out here went through. That if you remember, you had tracks in that undergraduate program in your last, primarily in your last year, but I guess extended to the junior year. You took tracks in specialty areas of interest to you, like business or educational uses of computers, and numerical computational application. There were a whole series of these, and I think that did well to influence our development of the graduate program in the way we were challenged to do so. Last thing I want to mention, or maybe it's not quite last, is that the whole thing about the history that's most important is people. People that formed the faculty. People that were very important in staff support of that faculty and the students. And the relationships between and among faculty and students. And this department was recognized in the College of Arts and Sciences, in which it developed over the years, as having almost a unique relationship with faculty and students. Well, I guess we were both growing up with the discipline at the same time, and that's why. But this was a distinct imprimatur for the department that carried through all the way into the 90s. We had relationships among students developed in the first floor environs of McBride Hall. Also, I guess it may have started in Burris Hall. Sue Guy and Backer, and I talked about the old joys of the RJE usage. And in fact, that plaque that Sean referred to, he didn't tell you the whole story about that plaque. It was given to me by students, yes, that's true, at the end of my first year as department head. Now, what was great about that first year is that I had as students Vietnam veterans. You don't think they had any hesitation in coming to the department head and telling you what was wrong and what needed to be corrected. No, they didn't, and that was good. That was really a positive part of the job. Guys like George Crum, Jerry Spindle, some of you know these names, that's why I mentioned them. Ron Buckley, people who helped a 33-year-old department head realize what he could do and what he should do. and they weren't always the same. We had the beginnings of the graduate program, PhD. Our first PhD student was produced by Rex Artson, a guy named Bob Trueblood. He went to, some of you took courses from Bob. Some of you might remember a guy named Mike Overstreet, who was an associate dean at Old Dominion. He spent time. But to come back to that plaque, because it was occasioned or saying upon it by a graduate student, a guy named Chris Sabo. Okay, those of you who know Chris remember that. And it was occasioned by my tromping into McBride Hall, the first floor, after receiving a phone call that all the RJE input output was down and not functioning. And I came in, and Chris was standing there, as only Chris Sabo could, and he made some smart remark. And so on the rest of this plaque, it does read Sugar Bear, and it is in quotes. You would rather Fritz kiss a rattlesnake than tangle with me. I used to love to have that in the office, especially when the prospective freshmen would arrive. It was on my hall, it was on the entryway from the hall, so that you didn't see it coming in. You saw it going out. And it's always fun, because always the student would be the first one in the little group going out. The student would get this kind of look. And then the mother would be following, and the mother would get this kind of look. And then there would be the father, and the father would get this kind of look. So, well, I won't get into that, Roger. But I will close with just one thing to tell you about the uniqueness, to explain the uniqueness of this department. Nora and Aaron could probably tell you more about this than I could, but I'll just tell you this. We were the only department in academic history to ever influence a dean to change a student's name from Noah to Kirsten.